And we're having another debt ceiling fight. If this is your first time paying attention to a debt ceiling fight, what this is the idea that Congress has to allow for the United States to take out more debt, and they do so incrementally. They had waived this for a period of time, and it has come back into effect. This means that the Treasury Department, the department that is in charge of taking out the loans that we fund our government operations with, now has to do some tricky accounting to get the money together to keep our government operating. If the debt limit is not raised before we run out of money, the government will default on its debt, which would trigger a huge economic collapse. Reading from a Wall Street Journal article on the topic, quote, "The national debt has been on an upward trajectory for 2 decades, in part because of 2 bipartisan budget deals that lifted government spending and the 2017 GOP tax cuts, which constrained federal revenue. The debt ceiling has been raised or modified 98 times, according to the Congressional Research Service." So what happens here is the debt ceiling is raised, and if there's a conservative in office, the Republicans go along with it, act like it's no big deal. If there's a Democrat in the presidency or that controls the House and Senate, then they bellyache about it and act like it is the worst thing to ever happen. However, they always end up raising the debt ceiling because it would cause a complete collapse of the government. Were they not to do that, it would mean that they would not be able to pay the veterans benefits, Social Security, they wouldn't be able to service the debt, and they would not be able to take out any more debt because, much like if you stopped paying your mortgage and the bank comes and repossesses your house, if we stop being able to service our debt, then we obviously are not going to have access to more debt, which is how our government runs. So while the Republicans may bellyache about it all they'd like to, when they're in office, they don't actually do anything materially to solve this issue. I mean, you saw this when Trump was in office. Trump really had no fiscally conservative agenda as far as cutting spending. He actually cut the federal tax revenue with his 2017 tax cuts, which were championed by the GOP, which meant that the national debt only increased. So this means that while this deadline approaches and the GOP will probably dig in their heels and make a big song and dance about it, inevitably they will, of course, allow the national debt to go up. And what the hell do they care? Most of them will be dead or out of office before it's a problem. But for our generation, it will be an absolute nightmare when we have to figure out how to continue to fund our government, but also to pay off these debts, as the percentage of our national spending that goes into servicing our debts goes up and up. Servicing our debts obviously means repaying what we owe and paying the interest on what we owe. So keep your eyes open for the battle to increase the debt ceiling.